Let's review Lohfink 21 to 26. This is on the New Jerusalem in the book of the Revelation of John, which is actually in the New Testament. Everything else we're looking at in this course from Lohfink is based on the Old Testament. But he takes this image because it shows so succinctly what it means to be the people of God. And it is rooted so much in the Israelite tradition, written by one of the apostles, likely, or someone close to the apostles, who were all Israelites. They were all Jews, one of the 12 tribes of Israel. And the imagery here used by John the Revelator shows us what it means to be the people of God in a very clear and succinct way. So this has to do with our basic theme of revelation, right? The people of God following revelation, right? One of the three key aspects. So revelation, again, is God's actual will, what God actually wants for us, right? And we know that God's will is what? That we become a community of loving persons, right? So this image will show us exactly what it means to be a community of loving persons. Now, the reason that John chooses a city is to show that the salvation is a community of loving persons. It's a society, right? It's a community. Right? So there's a statement right there. It's not found in going off and living in a garden by yourself. No, the people of God are people who live in community. And we see even throughout the history of the church, when people live lives of seclusion, like religious hermits, it's temporary. And either that people come to them to meet them in the desert and that forms a community, or they live with community of other recluses, of other people who have went away from, escaped, right? Who have escaped the society that is dominated by religiosity, or after some time in the alone, they come back and they share what they've learned for the good of others. This is the revelation. This is God's will for us, that we become a community of loving persons. And so we see that the society or community that is described in the New Jerusalem by John the Revelator is at the end. It's at the end of time. Well, not really the end of time. It's the end of the world as we know it now, right? It's a new world, right? Just like the Garden of Eden was kind of before the world as we know it now, right? This symbolic community is set kind of after the world now. Now, they're both trans-temporal, like they transcend time, and they're both symbolic. But it's very interesting because we start with, okay, here's how things were before, right? And now in the Revelation of John, we're going to see how things are after. So let's see what the new city's like. Let's look at the symbolism here of this New Jerusalem, right? And that's what we're talking about here, the New Jerusalem. That's what this is called. Right? This is going to give you hint number one, right, about how it's linked to a particular people in history. Jerusalem, Jeru, Salem, right, is the capital of Israel, right? The capital of Israel. The 12 tribes. So we see this link here that this new society, right, is linked to what God has called these 12 tribes to be. And the first thing we see about it is it's for everybody. The nations, right? The kings of all the earth. Its gates now shall be shut by day, and there's no night. And they shall bring the glory and the honor of the nations into it. It's open to everyone. Everyone is welcome. It's a free entry, right? If you want to live there, if you want to be part of the society, it's there for you. It's big. It's real big. You know, occasionally I run into religious movements that claim that there will be very few people saved. Well, according to this, it's big. As a matter of fact, it was big enough for everybody, large as the then civilized world. An important characteristic, because everyone is invited. And we can hope that everyone goes. So again, it's international, right? We talked about one of the characteristics of the people of God following Revelation is that you see all people as dignified, right? You care about all people, just like God cares about all people. You don't just say, oh, this is for us Americans, or this is for us Israelites, or this is for us what have you, right? No, it's for everyone. It has the 12 gates that are never closed. And the 12 gates, there's 3 in every direction. So the symbolism that people from everywhere are welcome here. They're never shut. It's made from the materials of the world, right? It's not separate from the world. It's not like, oh, once the world gets destroyed and we'll just have this spiritual city. No, this is something that God is calling for us to establish here on earth, the community of loving persons. And so again, occasionally, well, actually very frequently in the United States, you'll run into people who think that the world has to get destroyed. That if we destroy the world somehow, then after that, then God will come help us. Then Christ will return. Doesn't really fit with the whole of scriptures. When we see the quote unquote new world, the new Jerusalem, the new city of God in the Bible, in this book, the Revelation of John, it's the one that most clearly talks about what it's going to be like at the quote unquote end of the world, which doesn't mean the world's destroyed, but that we transform the world into the world that God invites us to make it. Right? It's where we live God's will and we share in his will. And so we create this paradise on earth. It's not something that happens after we die. It's not something that happens when the earth is destroyed. It doesn't take place by abandoning creation. No, we turn creation into paradise. This is our potential as beings who are created in the image and likeness of God. You see, it transcends time, right? So this is something that is present and possible for us all the time. It's in the world, it's in time, but it also goes beyond time. So there's no sun or moon. The Lamb, who is Christ, or God incarnate, right? God become human. God become the imperceptible. God has become a perceptible being. Right? So Lohfink wraps it up. He says, the vision here is not as a catastrophe. Right? The future of the world is a new society that's entirely the gift of God. Right? It's open to everyone. Right? We become a community of loving persons in which we care for all people, and all people are free to join in this community. So, how is this linked to a particular people in history? Well, first of all, let's look at the question. What's the point of the question? Well, we're talking about how God starts small. In order not to force us, God has to give us simple, start very small, so that we have first a man, one person that chooses to listen, to trust and listen to God, right? And then we have a people, the Israelites. We can see trusting God. Not all the time. They have good times and bad times, but they continue to listen to God at least, and through His grace to trust Him. And we see this linkage here to a certain people, which then in the New Jerusalem gets turned into all the people. All the people learn to trust God. So we see all kinds of symbolism for that. The 12 gates, right? That represents the 12 tribes of Israel. The 12 stones, right? That represents the 12 tribes of Israel. So this is a really great section for understanding what it means to follow revelation, what it means to become a community of loving persons. Okay, I hope this helped. Study for the final.